So I'm going to be real with you. I don't want to identify as a leftist anymore. And not in the sense that I'm not a leftist anymore. My politics haven't changed at all, which is that leftist itself has been co-opted as the structure, as a thing, virtually identical to the right, with a sex-positive glazing. Sunday, why let the left video essay win? I didn't leave the left. The left left you. And what's happening is, it really is that kind of abstract tribalism that is causing people to pile in with each other and to overlook some really heinous things. YouTube heads are not a movement, don't let them take that. Well, who else are you talking about? Well, exactly. So to be clear, I'm not a leftist. I'm just not labeling myself as one anymore. Because what leftist means now, for virtually everybody, is obstinate gay centrism. And that's not what I am. But it's weird. So like this is my background, right? This is how I sort of rolled into this. Rolled into being a leftist. So I came out of a conservative background. Very like not like right wing. Not like that kind of right wing. Not like Keith Woods or like Nick Fuentes right wing. But like conservative Christian family, very suspicious of like sexual minorities, etc., etc. Very much so. I worked on the set of a movie based on LGBTQ themes. More just, it was the early 2000s, so more just LGBT themes. Which is a very uncomfortable experience as a consequence of that. Just as sort of give a sense of like where I was kind of operating at the time. Obviously, this does not reflect my attitude now, but I underwent like a long, uncomfortable series of transformations over the course of 15 years or so. It really accelerated after I left university. And I started shifting left primarily, both because of like where my own like thinking and like introspection and whatnot was taking, but also because I was realizing that as a consequence of my interactions, especially online, that the right was not filled with people who were capable of having any level of communication. That wasn't just hooting approval of the party line, so to speak. And so I found the opposite of that in leftist spaces. Until everybody completely abandoned that because of money almost immediately. It was weird. I one of the first leftists that I had like a positive interaction with was Chud Logic. He was really mild-mannered back then. He would talk about, you know, how if you oppose hormones for children, then you are in favor of children killing themselves and whatnot. He was speaking exactly that tone. Very, very long periods of time. Switched to drama content. Started ranting about leftoids. Started talking like this. And so he was off on his own thing. It just fine. I don't really care. Now I don't really care. You had Vaush at the time. I criticized him at the time. It's like, hey guys, don't engage in political violence at universities against right-wingers. Don't do that. I criticized them for that. PhilosophyTube did the same thing. Those people, those Antifa people who are beating the old man with a stick on camera, what you really need to understand is that this is the only way you can fight fascism. All suddenly mild-mannered liberals, more or less. Even if they don't call themselves that. Why? Because they achieved a mainstream audience, now they need to moderate themselves to maintain that. Because they were never leftists. What, you mean there's a transcendent self, Brooks? Is that what you're saying? No. No, I think they were leftists, but I think this is a case of, it's a matter of why they were leftists. I think they were leftists because the center of gravity for them at the time was being a leftist, right? Is the history of political change? I don't think it's the history of political change. I mean, this is ubiquitous throughout history, obviously. But like, I didn't expect it to be so unanimous across the board. And here's the weird thing, like, I was never on board with these guys in a strong sense. In the sense of, for example, I would be you know, stern but measured in how I critiqued endorsing people with black bandanas to beat up people in the street. No, I'm saying they're socially and politically positioned out of selfish, paranoid demands and needs. Yeah, sure. I guess the upshot of this is I'm billing myself as an anarchist going forward, not as a leftist. Not as anti-leftist, not some weird Hawes type anti-leftist anarchist thing, but because I just don't think that name means anything anymore. Anarchism is leftist. I agree, Brooks. They don't know that. Just because it's gotten gross. Like, it's gotten gross. I feel like whenever I go into a conversation, I'm having a whole bunch of opinions imputed to me based upon the actions of people whose entire shtick is just being as outrageous as possible on YouTube to get clicks. You know? That's not my... Vaush is an anarchist, as he says. Vaush doesn't call himself an anarchist anymore. He's stopped that. I haven't heard him call himself an anarchist in forever. It is also laughable. He's not an anarchist by any definition. Like, I'm taking your point, Brooks. I don't believe the online left is the left, quote unquote. But insofar as like how I identify on online, I'm associated with the online left, and it feels like this is what you get. And this is one of the reasons why the online left as a space with anything unique about it is just dying. This is what you get for being a leftist TM online. Okay, you get a whole lot of people who are really eager to police who you talk to and about what, and that's it. And to be clear, that's not always a bad thing. So for example, sometimes people will make cynical decisions to talk to X, Y, or Z, or to be nice or softball X, Y, or Z on the basis of personal business interests. Maybe being friendly, for example, with someone like Lonerbox, unlikely, but maybe being friendly with someone like Lonerbox like facilitates future debates. Maybe that's good for growth. Maybe I can be the reasonable one. And maybe that's something that you should probably be, you know, receive some pushback for, because you are potentially contributing to something bad for personal gain, even if you've layered it into something good, right? Like, that's a case where it matters. But by and large, in most cases, it really is just people who have had this notion fostered that they are owed deference on the basis of their self-perceived disadvantage, just bullying people out of conversations, just all over the place. And that's not good. It does two things. It destroys the morale of people who are serious. It makes it so that people who are earnest, but who haven't, like, completely developed to the point where they see the light, so to speak, it deters them from continuing because it makes us look crazy. And it also trains content creators or people in positions of leadership to ignore their followings because they have no concern whatsoever for the actual success of the platform, which means to actually serve your community means to destroy yourself and thereby eliminating any possible means of serving your community. So why not just make money? You see the problem? Like the contradiction? Identity politics is reactionary, Brooks, I agree. But that is what you bring on by dint of calling yourself a leftist. And there have been several lines of escape that people have taken from this. You have, for example, the liberal types who essentially reestablish themselves as like, well, we're not leftists anymore. We're like liberal / centrist, and you know, we just hear both sides out. Boom! You've just neutered that annoying, loud, presumptuous clique. Or you go the Haas route. That's one where it's essentially just reconfigure yourself as reactionary politics with red regalia. Or you go the Vaush route, where you just rehabilitate toxic masculinity. I hate that word, by the way. And use the reveling in the internet tough guy feel to just batter everybody else down who gets in your way. Rehabilitate. What do you think Vaush's little shtick is? It's across the board, by the way. So, for example, sex positivity, healthy sex positivity, involves not judging other people for harmless, unique preferences, and for not having an attitude towards sexuality and sex acts that treats them as some sacred thing that must be treated as like a religious fetish. What it doesn't mean is, oh, yeah, if somebody has drawn pictures of kids on their computer, sexualized nude pictures of children on their computer, engaged in bestiality, say for example, as Vaush did, that you're being judgmental. You're judging him if you have an issue with that. Or like the idea that there is no such thing, for example, as creepy or objectifying uses of sexuality in media. Stuff like that. So on and so forth. You can debate about like the particulars in any given case. But fundamentally what it's turned into is, yeah, Destiny's a leftist because he wants to f*** everything. Guys, that looks really bad. That looks really bad. This is a bad state of affairs. Yeah, Vaush is a leftist because, well, what? He rants about Palestine and he's cool with kid porn. By the way, we really like this guy who has, you know, drawn depictions of nude children on his computer that he showed on stream. We really like this guy because of his trans advocacy. Yeah, that's a connection we want to foster, right? Yeah, I don't think so. That's not a conservative take. That's a, hey, let's not commit collective suicide take. And by the way, if one of you is about to be executed by a state on shoddy evidence, and there is a campaign to try and write the governor to stay your execution, he'd rather talk about his clothes. That's not going to work anyways. So it's just gross. It's just gross. Like, I think I was really optimistic about Tyler in particular. I think that one hurt for a couple of reasons. First of all, because obviously he was like weirdly friendly in like private calls, and then he misused that information, or he lied about the content of those calls in order to attack me for criticizing his really lazy hit piece. But also because like he had kind of been billing himself as like a reaction to that kind of cynical fake left, and I was genuinely optimistic about that. And it was like, oh, okay. So it's just another one. It's just another one. Great. Fantastic. It's depressing. It's just really depressing. Not blackpilled, not at all. I'm not blackpilled at all. I think there's a tremendous potential still in this medium. But I think so long as we are relying on established channels, I think we're doomed. Truly. Sunday, what is the next step is the question? Well, we're in a good spot because we're self-sufficient. The channel's self-sufficient. So basically you're cutting ties with White Leaf and Cornbread Tube, I get it. No, it's mostly just a matter of self-identification. Because that's something that's been an ongoing theme, is I haven't self-identified for a long time. And when I do, it's very gradual. So it took me a long time to identify as a leftist streamer or a leftist creator. I guess I was more video essays back then. I'm still working on them. They are coming out. I think it's more, I'm going to be branding specifically as an anarchist going forward for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I think that I have the opportunity to help repair the reputation of anarchism in some spaces, because there are a lot of bad anarchist channels, or channels that have been like tainted by like just really, really bad stuff, which is something so far we've been immune to, thank God. And it also helps me like separate myself from leftist creators as a whole. Okay, give me 2 minutes. 2 minutes for what? What do you need 2 minutes for? Brooks, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean? What do you need 2 minutes for? Give me 5 minutes to agree with you? Okay, come on. That's a trap. I know it's a trap. Give me 5 minutes to agree with you. He never agrees with me.
I know. I'm a pain in the ass. How you doing?
Okay, what's the catch? You never agree with me.
I'm agreeing with you to a point, and I want to be just very specific.
I knew it. Okay, go on.
I think generally, I'm in the same boat as you. How many times have you asked me, like, and we've laughed about sort of what I identify as, or people have said, I know Brooks is a blank, Brooks is this, and you kind of laugh because it's not really a thing that works to describe my positions or where I'm at, and it's not a thing I've done. I get very much that concept. I would ask, just generally, to avoid also moving in and saying anarchist. Because here's the challenge of how these spaces grow. There was no Breadtube. There was YouTube. And people started getting a little bit more politically active around the time of Bernie and other things. Destiny was sort of the early sort of point of the spear, but there was no Breadtube. What happened is people started noticing, oh, these people generally fit together. and they kind of work out. And at some point, they became a thing. But the problem is, as things become a thing, they harden, they crystallize, they become concrete and specific. And then at that point, it starts making it so new things can't be added because of the shape of that thing.
Yeah.
So you ossify, you die, you watch this thing strangle itself to the point where there are black.
You get hard, if you will.
Critters.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, there are black leftist content creators who aren't considered part of Breadtube for reasons. And it's because they're not part of, like, honestly, the little clique that's been built. This is the process of how sort of the fascism of capital operates. The crystallization of things to the point where it's no longer about the growth into it, but instead, do they fit the preconceived shape? If you move and you go, I'm not that anymore, I'm now going to play this other game where I'm an anarchist, you're going to run into the same thing. Just letting you know, as someone who, like, sort of went through this, there is no good thing called an anarchist anymore. That doesn't exist. They just don't. So instead,
that I think, if I may, though, that's kind of the point. So I'm not intending to identify with anarchists. I'm hoping to identify as anarchist and to.
But you're also not that.
I kind of am, though. Like
no,
really deeply anarchistic. Not in like the Proudhonian sense, but like that's kind of the underlying theme of like most of what I do now. It's one of the reasons why my essays are taking so long to bring out, because it's like.
But here's the problem. Do you know why it's called Breadtube?
Because they like gluten.
No, really. Do you know why it's called Breadtube?
Conquest of bread. Correct.
Yeah. Which is
Proudhon. Wait, no, it's not Proudhon. That's is that Proudhon? That's
no, it's not. It doesn't matter. It's anarchist theory.
Kropotkin, that's it.
It's anarchist theory. So you're saying I'm not that kind of anarchist, I'm this kind, and that is probably not great. And not really what you're going for either. I would guess. Like a purification thing inside of. Not
a purification thing. Literally,
but it kind of sounds like it.
But it's not. So it's actually.
I know it's not. But I'm letting it like it. Hey, those guys who call themselves anarchists, I'm not like that.
But it's because anarchist tube is. It's because the anarchist part of quote unquote Breadtube is so dead that I think that makes sense. So doing anarchist content and having it be like.
So what about a different thing? And I know it's kind of weird. What about not labeling that? And instead, let's figure out as we go what things are and where we can find shape. Rather than going, oh, I'm in this other thing or this label with this and all this. Instead, just do your thing and I'll do my thing. And
I intend to. That's how I've always worked.
So just don't call it anarchist. Because by the way, I can tell you 5 or 6 ways that you're definitely not an anarchist in that way.
Can you do it?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. How are you not an anarcho-capitalist?
That's a question. That's not a statement.
No, it's very much the point. Do you believe in the corporate superstructure should be able to murder the people that it wants to?
No.
Well, why not? That's anarchism.
That's a specific kind of anarchy, but that's not anarchism.
Right. This becomes this is where we again. I don't think you want to go down the route of purity testing in the same way that this person's a communist, I'm a communist, they're not a true communist. They're not a true anarchist. They're not.
I'm not going down that route. I'm just talking about strictly in terms of branding. That's it. So for example, another announcement I neglected to mention, the Present Sunday Archives channel, which has traditionally hosted like old VODs when I used to delete VODs from the main channel, I'm going to be converting that into a book and book review channel. So, for example, let's say, because I'm kind of fascinated by like the subculture of like fantasy novel fandom on YouTube. I don't know why. I find it like interesting.
Mm-hmm.
An anarchist reviews Game of Thrones or The Name of the Wind. Like that's a thing, and I would literally break it down like that. I'd be like, okay, here's some interesting things that this novel seems to assume about what is.
I think there's room for all that. I'm slowly putting together the pieces of talking about what's going on with P. Diddy through Batize the Eye, which I believe is related. You might do the same thing for horror through Hellraiser, for example, which I believe would also be related to the idea of intensity and growth and how these things. But you can do those things. But the challenge for me, and there's a couple of very particular things when we say, and this is why when this started off, I was like, and I kind of get where you're going now.
Yeah. Also, Wid says that's tacky as hell. I know. I don't think for one second that I don't hate all of this. Okay. I really do.
What's tacky? My shit is not tacky.
No, cool. No. An anarchist reviews or reacts to it like fuck that shit. It's awful. But that's kind of why it clicks. Why did that Joe Cat video do so well? It's because it hit a lot of people as like, there's something deeply disturbing and off about this. That's why it was so successful. Nobody cared because he liked.
Well, if I may, because I think the thing you're going for in terms of branding can be done not by necessarily saying an anarchist reviews, but instead of saying an anarchist reviews, which places you in a particular place, but instead say Game of Thrones through the eyes of anarchism is one, it does the same thing. It does the same for the end user.
Okay, well, that's sure. Well, like,
I mean,
one way to put it is like an anarchistic analysis or an anarchist analysis of Game of Thrones. That's right.
Sure.
It's because the identity thing and the potential for the reviewer to be a lol cow is like a major selling point. It is what it is. It's just a business. I don't like it.
Right. No. I get it. And again, so my question would be, because this is again to get to the core of what I think you're talking about. The issue is that the Breadtube or the online left or whatever the that grouping has ossified to the point of damnation, which I'm not going to drastically disagree with in terms of YouTube or online social media, which I'm glad is slowly dying. Instead, the move you're making is instead saying, I'm actually part of this much larger, wider group. And that move, to me, ends up basically moving from a small frying pan to a large frying pan.
Yeah, that's not what I'm doing.
Okay, well, it sounds like it.
I'm kind of hoping it's kind of the opposite. I want to stand out as distinct. Like if you look on YouTube right now, the anarchist field is barren. It's like, who have you got? You got Andrewism, largely by dint of doing James C. Scott stuff. I like Andrewism. And although some of his stuff is lazy. Sorry, Andrew. And who doesn't have a sex scandal yet? Can we name somebody? Anybody? Zoe Baker? No, bad example. Wait, hang on. No, it wasn't Zoe Baker. It was Zoe Baker doesn't have a sex scandal. Who's the there's another one.
I also have another side to this.
Oh, is she gone?
That I want to
now, or
there's another part of this that I want to also mention because you're not a nobody channel. I'll speak to you as someone who is a fairly nobody channel.
I am a nobody channel. I've got 17,000 subscribers and 250 concurrent viewers. It's nothing.
I have 2,312 concurrent. So yeah, there's always smaller fish. In fact, there's a lot of smaller fish.
Well, like you said, 2,300 make the number sound bigger. Continue.
I thought it was 2,300.
You deserve more, but I still win. Sorry, continue, please.
No, you do win. That's
Sophie from Mars. That's who I'm thinking of. Sorry. Okay, guys, Zoe Baker talks too slow, okay? She talks too slow in her video essays. She has no sex scandals, bless her heart. Continue, please.
There's a lot of people getting into the space, smaller making their way in. And they are going to attach to Breadtube or try to find their play within that space because it is the space that's able to do that. It is a place where people are able to find solace, but also growth, because it is people who are in the sense of coalition building, semi-like-minded in comparison to other spaces. Otherwise, you're left adrift into a nothingness. To pull away from that, or to create gulfs, or to do things like this that isn't constructive, or building upon, or moving into a place that allows coalition building, ends up forcing people to make decisions between you, them, your circle, their circle, and separates. And I just generally caution against anyone who's in the space of coalition building, which the left ostensibly kind of is permanently. The way that we ought to function is instead coalition building, critiquing, and growing and building in that way. So that way we're able to continually allow the entirety of the space to grow. But also, again, YouTube left is not real left. It is not real the thing. It is a very particular organization of a handful of capitalist systems.
It's also completely parasitic on right-wing creators that are more successful, like entirely. Like
I'm not, again, not disagreeing with that at all.
I know you're not. I'm adding to that.
Yeah, but there are good leftists that exist out there. There are good leftists in the podcast world, for example, that would not necessarily like laugh about Breadtube just generally.
No, and like you got your Sam Cedars and whatnot. You have like a whole bunch of like really successful and really solid.
A friend of mine, Robert Evans, who does Behind the Bastards and a whole bunch of other stuff, and he did like he was on the ground during BLM, like real reporting. Mark Ames and the guys at Radio War Nerd. I think there are people who were in the orbit of Chapo Trap House that are actually very good, who are doing their own thing, who have also broken off and are also like there's a lot of, in terms of like what we can be doing and how we can be growing, there's a ton of people out there that are what I would say, and I would encourage to say, are not part of Breadtube. Breadtube is, again, a very particular capital formation inside of YouTube that is focused on really the leavings of destiny. I don't know how else to phrase it. Like, that's what it is. It's destiny's droppings and everyone's sort of coming along for that. And everyone else is sort of scattered to the wind because they aren't playing that same game and they won't allow themselves to be part of an ossifying group. So what do you do and how do you build something that is not... The
problem is that if you want to build something, you need to allow ossification. You can't build on sand.
Well, that's not necessarily true either.
What do you mean? Well, let me rephrase that differently. That sounded mocking. How do you build off of something that is fundamentally in flux?
You produce content and elements that allow modularity and connections for the user to find their own pathways.
How do you do that when the condition of even reaching the user is networking with these ossified structures?
I don't know. If I knew, I'd have done it.
And me too. Okay. That's where I'm at.
But I can tell you right now, I can tell you what isn't it. It's the stuff that people have already done because it's not new. Breaking off, doing your own thing.
They found me.
I mean,
sorry, go on.
They're doing X, Y, and Z. They're doing this thing. They're doing that. So that whatever it may be that breaks off, I'm now this and I'm done. I'm post left. I'm this or that. Those things have been done. People have made these moves, and it did not coalition build. It did not grow. In fact, if anything, it fizzled, and those people sort of found themselves adrift. So my point would be, instead of that, what is something else that could be done? And that part is, I think, the interesting question, because it means doing something that no one's done before, and maybe multiple things with multiple people that no one's done before. And that we don't know what it'll turn out as. That gives us
Well, it's been nice that your first video essay was so successful, so we'll be orbiting you within a year by the look of things.
I'm doing something no one's done. Like, very specifically, and we talked about this, the essays and how I'm building them, they're not pointed, they're not anti-educational, they're actually just very simply put. They're leading towards, and there's a wealth of information behind them if you continue into the channel, and that's part of the thing I've been really happy to see, is that a lot of people who came stayed and found their way into other stuff. But I want to keep building what other things can be done that sort of implies on that. What other things can we do that sort of builds into that and gives people their own ability to grab a line of flight, as Guattari may say, that allows them to find something new and build something new themselves. How do we enable viewers? This is what Breadtube's done, is basically created a space that is disabling to viewers, that is filled with, as my video said, resentment, that teaches them that they ought to feel upset.
That's a good way to put that. I like that. Disabling to viewers. I like that. That's a good... It
castrates the viewer, because it teaches them they are part of this group. Don't try new things. Here's what you do. Here's the hopelessness. Here's the problems. Here's the people to be upset with. And I don't believe that's the way things work. There's actually an extraordinary amount of ability for people to act into the world. We just have taught them otherwise. That's it. And so how do we create the foundation or the space that enables them to have a little bit more movement and a little bit different in that way? This would be my question. because here's the reason I'm around with you, because I think you tend to be kind of a weirdo with the drama shit, and I hate drama generally. Sometimes I do find it entertaining. I get it. But you have a very, very particular way of looking at philosophy and politics and other stuff that I sync with. And that doesn't happen a lot with me. I dig the shit out of that. And we have good convos, and we tend to have good faith, real debate discussions that people in the chat and other places are like, God damn it, Brooks. But it's like, no, we have good faith disagreements, even though they may get impassioned, we get a little pissy with each other. Like, we can have that. And I like that. It's good. It's positive.
You're always in the chat for the drama shit. I see you there, but okay.
Some of it. There's other stuff that I do not, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's I was more making a facetious joke, but sure, fine. Yes, I do like that too. I like having things in the background.
I was also, it's okay.
No, but it's fine. I'm happy to be vulnerable about that. I enjoy that, but I like the theory stuff. And the theory stuff I've found, and it's been weird, but the ability for you to do theory stuff that does get views, that does actually get, and my first video did very well, you're getting far more views for things that are more boring, actually. So,
True.
Like, you've got room for that. You've made a space that's
very true, actually. Oh my God.
So, far more boring, but interesting, but boring.
No, just boring. The way to this, I'm not gonna lie. I'm every time we cover way to this, I'm dying on the inside. It's the same over and over again. It never ends. I feel like I'm stocking shelves at Walmart again. It's like
it's horrifying, but people watch, they learn a few things, they grow, like they get their own direction. There are things there that there is room to grow. There's things there that are things that we can nurture, and we can find ways for an audience that is primarily younger people that are coming in to have their own, again, lines of flight. This is where I go, do not pigeonhole yourself back and regress into the state of saying an anarchist reviews this, because then you've lost everything. Because I will tell you right now, you're not heading into the space of being an anarchist. Just letting you know that you're going to get past it and you're going to continue. Things get really, really weird once you get further and further into the direction you're going. But this thing is a thing that other people are going to be able to find ways to follow. And people are going to find ways to continue to find ways to be revolutionary in their own life through you being revolutionary in what you do, or what I do, or what other people do. People have made weird changes based on sitting and watch. Someone randomly messaged me on the Quarantine Collective that they actually are applying to like master's programs for philosophy. And they started, like, they wanted to get into it, but they didn't have the degree for it. They didn't think they could do it. But listening to me and I would almost use an arsler there of myself. I'm ableizing myself. But like my own stupidity, early days of Anti-Oedipus and my philosophical readings, they went, it made me go, if Brooks can do it, which I take as a compliment. There is a lot you can do to build forward and not create that label. And at some point, we will ossify, perhaps. We can build mechanisms and spaces and ways to not do it. But at some point, if we do get successful, the best thing in the world will be someone else will be on a stream watching you going, Sunday and the Sunday Tube bunch of have ossified and it's garbage and they're all pieces of shit. Hopefully you didn't have a tax filter go up. They're those guys, we're going to do something bigger and better. And if you can spawn that, you win. I spent the first 8 years after Columbine happened, I would go to schools where a school shooting had just happened. I would go talk to schools about bullying. I would talk to kids one-on-one, and I would eternally come away knowing I didn't change anything. And it was awful. It would feel awful every time because you'd feel like you did nothing and it would be dark and awful. But once in a while you get a letter. You're reading your book saved my life. Reading your book, hearing you talk, it made me understand this. It made me fix that. The way life of an activist goes, or someone who cares about things, is going to be that of eternal disappointment because you are able to and you care enough to see the pain that everyone is in and you want to fix it. And when you feel impotent yourself, you want to stop. But you're not impotent. There's nothing about this that's impotent. There's the impotent thing would be giving up and moving on. The impotent thing would be claiming another group. Instead, fuck them, everyone. Keep pushing, keep learning, keep inspiring people to learn, keep growing in any direction you can, and allow people to grow as they do or not alongside you. And as that goes, there's an amazing authenticity to it that itself will become successful. This is what made Vaush. This is what made Destiny over time. They ossified, but it's what did it. They grew. People watched them grow. They both grew into sort of monsters of themselves, but that process, that thing, is what people attach to. And if you can find a way to build a system and build a channel and build content that allows people to watch that growth, but also continually have it sort of broken and resurfaced and having them also find their own, you will have extraordinary power. And it's an amazing place to be. I hope.
Geez, fine. I won't do anarchist fantasy book reviews.
I would say, and if I may, I would completely say I get your point and I'm with you on it. And I like, this is fire to me. If everything I'm saying here sounds right to you, then this is the fire within me that I love. And this is the thing I love that I see in other people when I can. And I want to encourage it. And I want to go, what you do is do the horror of SCP and relate it to in philosophical context. Absolutely. The nomos of X, Y, and Z. Get those pieces out there. Get people going, what the fuck is a nomos? But I like BioShock. And so that thing, that, by the way, you then become a video game philosopher reviewer. Breadtube at any cost. Anarchist Breadtube. Them become a book reviewer that does these weird perspectives, that does the nomos of that does the thing you love about it, because those essays are fire. People like them. It grows, it builds, and then all over everyone else who disagrees. It's great. And then build something new. Those hot shit. You do good stuff, and you need to not let the left tube nightmare that is Breadtube be the thing. Right now, I'm going to rant for 2 seconds more. I am so sorry to do this to you.
That's okay.
Right now in Anti-Oedipus, we're reaching this part where Deleuze is talking about the move from the coding and overcoding of the earth and despotic socius to this thing capital does that is axiomatizing. Now, it's a really complex concept. I've literally stopped the reading so we can review this one word, and we've been on it for 3 weeks, and we're going to be on it for 3 more weeks. We've stopped the book because this is the thing capital does, and it's a really important, very difficult concept for people to get. But we have basically 2 ways of looking at math or geometry or the world. And one is the axiomatized way, the way where we say a circle, for example, is a series of equidistant points from a center point. That is the definition of a circle. Or we say a circle is a line drawn around a point in a single movement at an equal distance. This sounds the same, and we don't really get it. But one is talking about how to make a circle. The other is saying what a circle is. One is telling you the process of building a thing. The other is saying what it is based on all the other times people have done it. Capital wants us to move from the first to the last. We always start with the first. The first time someone built VR glasses, the first time someone made a machine learning neural net, the first time someone connected wires together, the first time someone built a first-person shooter or an engine or anything, no one knew what they were. No one had a clue what these things were. We called them Doom, first-person shooter. But those categories weren't refined. They were being built. We didn't have lines around it. We didn't know what it was. Over time, capital forced us to begin deciding what things were, drawing those very, very particular lines. And Breadtube is that. When it first started, it did not have a shape. It was just a loose collection of sort of people who seemed to sort of agree. And then over time, because of financial and capital systems, it hardened, it ossified, and it changed. And it became, are you in Breadtube is a yes or no, not what is Breadtube, what could it be? Those differences, If we can stay in the place of the problematic, of the question, of the building and the not knowing, instead of moving to the here is what's defined, then we end up in a better place. And by the way, that is actually what anarchism is. Anarchism isn't a system that is defined. That's one of the reasons that makes it really difficult to get across to people, and why calling yourself an anarchist is kind of weird, because it just means that generally you're in a state of almost permanent revolution. You have no stability, and that is terrifying to people. What they want is, first question everyone asks, well, what are you going to do when this happens? Like, well, we'll deal with it. Like, that's what we'll do, is we'll deal with it when it happens. And it's like, well, I don't know. I want a bunch of rules written down, and can we have a central place where it's written down and maybe central people to enforce it? That'd be great. Can we do that kind of anarchism? And you get fucked, because everyone wants
it's the same thing. You're just dealing with it when it happens with outdated rules that you made up at a point when the current situation apply. Yeah.
Spot on. And so when we talk about what are we going to be, what are you going to be? Don't define yourself as an anarchist. Be one. And that means not calling yourself one.
All right, this is now a right-wing channel, guys. We're playing the long game.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. I agree. There goes my whole marketing strategy, though.
Oh no, it's even better though. That's the fun part. Because and I say this as someone who did marketing for a long time. And when I did marketing, I worked in marketing. I was director of digital marketing at LucasArts. And I was that for multiple years. And every day I'd walk in and I would play on my computer speakers at full blast the Bill Hicks marketing scene, where he tells marketing people to off themselves. It's an amazing moment. Every day, and no one liked that I did it, but I had to make sure I knew what I was doing. If you are in the space of marketing where you are marketing as an anarchist, you actually are missing the way capital operates. Capital operates best when you're breaking apart codes and when you're allowing things to be fully set up as they are. So instead of being an anarchist does X, Y, and Z, people will then go, well, I don't really care about that because I'm not an anarchist, or I've seen anarchists before. They will value that. Instead, literally, by the way, how you're doing it, which is talking about the thing as it is, separate from larger grand meaning, the nomos of BioShock, the nomos of Bloodborne. These things are question marks that people then have to place into something and build something out of. That's better marketing than anything else would be. You're actually doing better marketing by not being part of those larger systems.
No, not you win. I agree.
That's not a win. The win is if you make good content and you eschew the labels just in general, then that is the win, because the Sundayness of whatever you're going for, or the continual growth and evolution that you've been making, that, I mean, granted, I'm biased because it's in my direction just generally. So granted, I'm up on this, so probably maybe don't listen to me, but like that stuff is like the good shit. And it's also, by the way, the shit that does the best on your channel, in my experience. If you can do drama stuff and even relate it back, which I think you can, I think it could be a hilarious way to sort of turn drama into this larger critique. Bataille did this, by the way. Lots of philosophers wrote of current major upheavals in social circles and sort of related them back to the way that the social realities and the anthropology of it or ethnology of social realities works. I think you could do an extraordinary job with that, just as a thought. But again, this is your good stuff. And so do your good stuff. It's good stuff.